Hello, welcome to this video on Butler's Printed Models World War II War Games rules. This video is about the sequence of play, or the bound sequence. Page 14 in the rules. I'm going to just run through each of the steps without going into each step in any detail. In simple terms, you dice for initiative, move, fire, melee, and then morale, with each side taking it in turn to do that. The first step is to dice for initiative. Both sides' dice will start with the British, rolled an 8, and then the Germans that have rolled a 7. There are adjustments to that. I'm going to imagine that brought the British down to a 6 for this example, so the lowest number is the winner, so the British have 1. As the winner of the initiative, they can choose to move first or second. It's usual to choose to go second so that you can see what the opponent has done. So step 2, the first moving player, which is going to be the Germans in this case, moves their platoons. Any reserves will arrive and they would roll to see if any aircraft are coming on this time. I'm not going to go through movement in any detail. We'll just move these up as an example of where they might be. The Stug has moved 50mm or more, less than its full move, so we give it a green counter for move 50mm short so that we know it's got options later in the bound. Then the second moving player, of course the British would move. The anti-tank guns don't wish to go anywhere, but the Stuarts will move up to the wall. That's theirs done, and any reserves would come on. They would roll for aircraft if they had any. We're not including that here. Step 4, the first moving player can rotate any element that moved, or stay stationary or moved short in its move. So it's up to 30 degrees. The shooting angle of marker is 30 degrees, so it can be used for this. The Stug doesn't need to rotate very much to point itself at one of the Stuarts, so we can take that marker off now. It will do that. Vehicles with a fixed gun have a very limited angle of fire, so that's important for that to be able to point at its target. The British aren't going to rotate at this point, but British aren't able to rotate at this point because only the second moving player gets that option. They could have pointed wherever they wanted. The Stug could not have moved forward its 50mm, it can only rotate. Step 5, the German player would be able to put any aircraft into their attack position, and then the British would do the same. Step 6. Step 7, the first moving player fires any smoke, either from artillery or direct fire if anything's capable, and then again British would do the same thing. Step 8. Step 9, German player declares anything gone to ground. Well, they've got no option here, but the British player does have an option. Something the anti-tank guns have not moved and they are in cover, so they could declare themselves gone to ground, red marker for that. They're not going to choose to do it because then they wouldn't be able to fire, so that won't be something we'll show here. And then step 11, the first moving player fires any indirect area fire, so the artillery. Not going to bother with that, but then the British would do the same thing. And just for this example, I'm not going to go through shooting your artillery in this video, but let's imagine that it landed there, hit these 3 elements, and one of them was disabled. We put a yellow disabled marker on to show that it's happened this bound. This element will still be able to fire because it was disabled in this bound. Then first moving player, Germans, would fire any anti-aircraft fire at the aeroplanes if there were any, The British would do the same thing. Step 14. They're on step 15. First moving player fires direct fire. The direct fire is simultaneous. It doesn't matter that the Germans fire before the British, because any effect they have doesn't take effect before the British fire. If you fired anti-aircraft fire, you can't now fire direct fire as well. If you fired artillery in direct fire, you can't fire now as well. The fact that these were under an artillery template this time does affect their shooting. I'm not going to go through the shooting sequence in this video. We'll just imagine what happens. So perhaps the Stug, good chance of it knocking out one of the Stuarts, and perhaps the infantry managed to disable one of the anti-tank guns. So that would be the German shooting phase over, and we'll be on to step 16 for the British to fire back. As I said, the fact that this is disabled and this is knocked out doesn't matter. It happened this bound, so they can shoot back. So the British fire back. Again, I'm not going to go through it. Let's just imagine that perhaps one element was knocked out, and that's the firing over with. If there are any ambushes, you would place them. These would place, and the British would place their ambushes. Step 19, you would fight melees. Both sides are involved in the melee. Would work that out. There aren't any in this example, but we'll do that now. And that's essentially the end of the bound. Step 20, remove any smoke markers. Step 21, disabled markers. I'll put that on there because that's now, we know that's destroyed. These markers blue markers get removed at this point, and yellow markers get turned over to become blue markers, disabled, removed at the end of the bound. That's telling us that this was disabled in the previous bound, and so in the next bound, because it's blue, neither of these will be able to move or fire as they are disabled. Bit of housekeeping done. We then do morale tests. First moving player first. It doesn't really matter who goes first, but these go first. Probably there aren't any morale tests. 1 out of 3 wouldn't be a test. Over here, anti-tank guns 1 disabled is not going to cause a test, whereas the Stuarts have lost 1 out of 2. That is a test. I'm not going to go through the test, but let's imagine that it failed it, and so that is removed. Because that platoon failed, the next platoon that takes a morale test this bound is affected by the fact that that's lost. You can take platoon morale tests in any order you want, but the order does matter. Things that are lost affect the next one that's testing. So test those that are most likely to pass first is usually the choice. And then final thing, step 23, both sides test their army morale to see if any army runs away. And we're back round to the start of the next bound.